So last week we talked about the chromatic scale. It's a great finger warm-up exercise that's going to help you in all of your guitar skills, your chords, your later things that you learn like pentatonic scales or power chords or even bar chords and open chords. Today I'd like to teach you 3 chords. They're typically the first 3 chords I teach all of my beginner students, sometimes on the first week, sometimes over a period of 2 or 3 weeks. Just depends on how quickly they can pick up on the chords. So the song, if you want to look up a reference for it, is Wild Thing by the Troggs, Troggs. They were the original authors of it. It's from the 60s, so it's kind of dated, but it's still a pretty cool rock and roll song. You can modernize it if you'd like. Jimi Hendrix also did a pretty cool version of it that gets pretty loose towards the end as far as song structure, but a very cool version to reference. I'm sure most of you heard of Jimi Hendrix. If you haven't, check him out. He's amazing. So the chords. The first chord will be the A chord, and that is typically not played with the low 6th string. It's played with the A string, which is the 5th string, the D string, the G, the B, and the E string. So you would strum 5 strings. The fingering that I really like, that has been tried and true over the many years that I've been teaching private lessons, is the 2nd finger on the 2nd fret, 2nd finger, 2nd fret of the D string, 1st finger, 2nd fret of the G string, and 3rd finger, 2nd fret of the B string. So what you got to watch out for is not muting your high E string. Beginners often have problems with, some beginners have problems with pressing the strings hard enough. Another issue is unintentional string muting. So if you strum the 5 strings and it doesn't sound like this, which I recommend strumming 1 string at a time when you first start learning how to play a chord. You always just do 1 string at a time, and if it sounds like this, then your fingers aren't pressing down hard enough. So if you go like this, you're still missing that high E string, which would be the little fatty part of your finger touching the high E string. So you just need to change the string angle. I'm going to hold my guitar in classical posture. 10 years I studied guitar and held it on my right leg, and then still to this day, 10 years later, I got to switch over to the left leg. It's better for your posture, it's better for wrist angle. If you're going to be an obsessive player, which I would say playing more than 10 hours a week, it's going to help with long-term not getting carpal tunnel in your wrist or forearm. Typically the hobby player doesn't have to worry about that as much, but the professional and the serious amateur trying to become professional is something to consider. So anyway, back to the A chord. You have 3 fingers on 3 strings. 2 strings are open. So you want to play it and just get the sound of it. As soon as you can play it correctly, you want to keep your thumb exactly where it's at on the back of the neck. Right there is okay. This is better. I'd say that's best. This is bad. That's not good. Although if you have really long fingers, you can get away with it, but it's just not good. So right here on the back of the neck, or even just a little bit elevated, is probably okay. So once you get the chord, keep your thumb put. Don't move your thumb, and then lift up your fingers and try to put them back as quickly as possible. Strum the chord again. Also, if it doesn't sound right, adjust your fingers, either finger pressure or fingertip angles, to get the chord sounding right. So the A chord is available. Just it's so available on the internet. Just look up a simple chord chart. Open chord chart. Hal Leonard makes a nice one. Mel Bay makes a nice one. If you want a hard copy, they are available. So the next chord in the progression is going to be a D chord. Now, what I always teach my students is to keep your first finger as a pivot finger and don't move it. So you keep your first finger on the second fret of the G string, and then you move your second finger to the second fret of the E string. Second finger, second fret of the E string. Third finger, third fret of the D string. And that is a D chord. It's 4 strings. So you have the open D string, you have the G string, B string, and E string. So if you're looking at it tab wise, if you're familiar with tab, it would be X X 0 2 3 2. If that didn't make sense to you, that's okay. So it would be, don't play the 2 bottom strings, the open D string, second fret, third fret, second fret. That's the D chord. If it sounds nice and smooth, great. Move on, and we'll go to another chord. If it doesn't sound smooth, then typically the number one issue that I have with beginners, with very new beginners, is that the third finger is going to be muting that E string, probably because of finger angle, also just because before your calluses develop on your fingertips, your fatty part of your finger can just spread out a little. So it's that much more important to keep practicing and just say, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're gonna get better. What I'm attempting to do in these videos is teach things that I've learned through 20 plus years of experience that most beginners might not get on the internet. And it's just very, very possibly simple observations as a teacher, but they can be big stepping stones to some people that just the guitar doesn't come super naturally to. That it takes a little more, might take a tad more effort to yield the results you want. So watch the third finger, the tip of it touching the E string. So if it sounds like this, what you got to do is you got to keep the nail of the third finger and try to move it as close as possible to the G string without touching it. And then usually that E string will start to vibrate. If you're still having trouble with it, go ahead and pick the third finger up, double check that the second finger is actually in fact fretting the E string properly, and then try the chord again. Something significant to note is that for beginners that still don't have calluses, the harder you press down, if you're pressing super hard and you've checked all these things and your chord still sounds like this, or one finger is sounding like that, what happens is you get holes in the tips of your fingers, and they just take time to develop those calluses. So just on your pant leg or your short leg, on your shorts anyway, short, not that you have short legs, but sorry, just say funny things sometimes to crack me up. So just rub your fingertips out, and they will reform, after a few seconds, and then try again. If you're in a lot of pain, what I suggest is often a guitar setup can be really helpful, especially on acoustic guitars that come with high strings. For inexpensive acoustic guitars will come with high strings. Contact a local music store, luthier. Often they can be done yourself if you already know how to do a lot of things and have woodworking tools. But there's so many tips. Like Stuart on YouTube. So there's so many YouTubers that can show you how to lower strings. Stu Mack, Philip McKnight, a couple others like that. So D chord. So we started with the A chord. Now, ideally, you want to spend a week just memorizing these chords. So play the chord, pick your fingers up, get back to the chord as soon as possible. And then as soon as you can do that, it typically takes most people a week or two. It seems slow, but just keep at it and keep doing it. I try to post positive things on my Facebook and Instagram page that encourage people keep playing, to not give up, but to succeed. And that goes with anything in life. Just don't give up. Keep trying, because you're gonna succeed if you don't stop. The only thing that will cause failure is just stopping. So, A chord, memorize it, go back, and then D chord. You want to get the changes between those two. Just strumming them and then switching. Not worrying so much at first about how many times you're playing it, but just switching them and getting comfortable with that. Then we add in the E chord. Now the interesting thing about the E chord is you're gonna take that what we call the pivot finger and actually slide it down to the first fret of the G string, and then move your second finger to the second fret of the A string and your third finger to the second fret of the D string. So if you were reading tab, it would be 0, 2, 2, 1, 0, 0. That's 0, 2, 2, 1, 0, 0. Now, if you don't understand what tab is, that's perfectly fine. It would be open E string, second fret, first fret, open. So that's going to sound like this correctly. And that's an E chord. That's how it's supposed to sound on an electric guitar. So again, from that D position, you're going to play the D, slide your first finger to the first fret, and then your second finger and third finger to the second frets. Now, what commonly happens as a mistake on this is two things. One is your third finger often mistakenly touches the G string. Again, that's finger angle, the fingertip. The first knuckle needs to pretty much be perpendicular to the neck. If it's at an angle, it's going to do this. So, and also the first finger is going to often do the same thing on the B string. So let me show you an example of a good E chord, and then a bad E chord first, and then a good E chord. So here's a bad one, which would be incomplete, and it's often how it's going to sound for a lot of beginners. So don't beat yourself up. Just try to learn from your mistakes. And so two strings, the G string and B string, are being muted. That's a bad one. Look really closely at how little there is a difference between a good one and a bad one. Here's a good one. Well, even there. Okay, so here's bad. Here's good. See, it's all on the angle of your fingertips, the first knuckle especially. If you're trying to keep your fingers straight, that's going to be extremely difficult to get those without really hyperextending your wrist. So you want to, if it's really awkward to you to bend, or maybe you're not a spry young spring chicken, maybe you're over the age of 20 or 30 or 40 even, our fingertips just don't want to bend like they did when we were kids. And you can do exercises with them, or that chromatic scale is a good warm-up, but just taking your fingers and going like this for a few minutes before you start playing guitar will help to stretch them out. And I'm a big believer in supplements. I've taken certain supplements over the years to help finger fatigue and help inflammation. I'm not going to go off on supplements, but I'm just saying they're out there, and you can talk to people about those and look up stuff about those. Those are often helpful for people with swelling or arthritis and like, again, over 40, we just don't move like we used to. All right, so we got the A chord, we got the D chord, and we got the E chord. So the idea here is the song Wild Thing goes 1 on the A chord, 1, 2, then it switches to the D chord, and it goes and 4, and it goes to the E chord, 1, 2, back to the D chord, and 4. You'll notice it's down, down, rest, up, down, 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 rest, up, down. So for 99.9% of brand new beginners, that's too hard to do day one, or even by day 2, or the first month often. So if it's taking you a while, that's okay. This is something to work on for a while. Come back and review periodically and see your progress. So what I often teach my beginners is to not play it for 2 strums, but actually to play it for 8 strums. That would be 2 measures of 4. In music, measures are how we divide groupings of beats and notes, and the most common time signature is 4/4. That's 4 quarter notes per measure, 4 beats per measure, and so you would do 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then switch. D, 2, 3, 4. Again, 2, 3, 4. Switch. E, 2, 3, 4. E, 2, 3. Switch. D, 2, 3, 4. D, 2, 3, 4. And then start over. A, 2, 3. Now, for most, that's 2 measures. Or 8 beats, but you would count it in sets of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2 measures of each chord. A, D, E, then back to D. So the idea is for a beginner that you're strumming and the changing, and that often for a lot of times it takes a whole 4 strums to change the stinking chord. And you know what? That's okay. It's progress. If you keep your right hand moving and don't stop the right hand and just keep it pumping like a metronome or a drummer, and you're having trouble changing but you're getting it, that's the most important thing, is to keep that right hand moving. Now if you're not getting it within 4 beats or even probably 4 beats, go back, review the chord, make sure your fingers have it memorized and that you can play it properly. Ideally, once you get it in 4 beats, you want to whittle it down to 3 beats, and then 2 beats, 1 beat, and then no beats, just an automatic change. When you can get it down to 1 or 2 beats, go ahead and divide the exercise into half and do it 4 strums per chord. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the A, 4 on the D, then 4 on the E, then 4 on the D, and start over. Now, do we do this one time? No, you don't do it one time. You want to do it for 3 to 5 minutes, and that's how long a song is, 3 to 5 minutes. If you just do it once, I mean, yeah, great, you did it once, but can you play a song by playing something for 10 seconds? No, you can't jam with your friends for 10 seconds. You want to be able to play it for 3 to 5 minutes. Then you can jam with your friends, or like I did in the beginning of the video, a metronome or drum machine. And that's where the real excitement starts to happen, when you can start making music. So after you get it at 4 beats, then take it down to 2 beats. Always listen to the original song before you begin practicing each day. If you listen to the original song, Wild Thing by the Troggs or Jimi Hendrix, then you'll get the idea musically. You'll hear it, and then we're trying to reproduce, not necessarily play along with, but reproduce your own version or a very close representation of the original song. Just one inspiring tidbit about reproducing representations of songs. I believe it was Eric Clapton, and I'm not quoting this is from memory. I believe it was Eric Clapton who said Robert Johnson was like a dear old friend. And I don't believe the two ever met. I don't even know if they were alive at the same time. I don't think they were. My cameraman's shaking his head no. But Robert Johnson, if you've never heard of him, one of the first blues guitarists ever, and quite an interesting story there. There's been movies and videos about it, but he recorded probably 30 songs, and Eric Clapton's covered a great deal of them, even did an album about Robert Johnson, and just good stuff, reproducing good music. So I encourage you to keep working, keep practicing. If you're getting frustrated or you're having trouble with that, please leave some comments, and I'll get back to you about any of your questions or concerns. So keep bending air and making beautiful noise.